Yo, what's going on, everyone? So I finished season 9 of Adventure Time, and after every season, I always do a review, kind of a plot summary thing, just to gather up my current thoughts and experience with the show. If you haven't seen any of the reactions or the reviews, YouTube stuff will be happening, or just go on the playlist. So without further ado, let's get into my season 9 review of Adventure Time. After another quality season that was season 8, I was curious what territories the show would go into for season 9. How did it fare? Season 9 of Adventure Time was my most polarizing season to date. This becomes the shortest season of the series thus far, which surprisingly does not affect the quality of its developments, since majority of the time my complaint was that they needed to have more separation and focused seasons. And there is a possibility that this shorter season does impact the overall payoff and the storytelling and narrative, but it was still a welcome addition that felt easier to navigate and was less hectic to get through. Immediately, we start off with a precursor dream episode that only shows the passage of their time away from Ooo. It then just shows them on the mysterious land. I felt it wasn't really necessary, as starting the season directly with them coming back from islands would have been much smoother. Very small detail, but I did want to mention it because it kind of was a small gripe I had. The entire Elements arc was still strong in quality. It builds on their world with the elemental plot that was introduced in season 8. This also creates for fun ways to change the characters and the personalities, whether they get absorbed by the elemental powers or they are in a different version of themselves. We venture to each of the 4 worlds that all bring their own issues and obstacles, and that usually has great pacing. Betty and Simon are at the forefront of this arc, and it's a sweet and quirky duo. Besides the slime portion of this adventure, which is only about 1 episode, everything is progressing and is the first time in the series that it's had this sense of immersive uncertainty. There's tension-filled and heartwarming developments that make this arc lovely and entertaining. The big development comes into play when the Enchiridion is brought back. This shifts the entire elemental arc, as now this unlocks Betty's true intentions. This world also allows LSP to be written into a saving grace, which does give one of the most unlikable characters I've seen get some redemption and gives this arc a great finale. Another issue comes into play that seems to be my biggest gripe with the season. The ending and deflating feeling of plot lines that have been built up that I was highly anticipating. With Betty not being successful in her pursuit of going back to the past, this possibly ends the relationship and resetting of Simon, which has been one of my most anticipated plot lines and parts of the show. Then, when Jake is turned into an alien in the finale of the Elements arc, this goes into the next episode where the development becomes a journey of Jake's change and identity. This is a great cathartic episode, but it feels like the series didn't have any conclusion to the previous adventure, or to take away from it, which compared to Stakes or Islands, feels weak. I also don't think the show was hinting or intentionally making Jake seem this way, so for it to be tackled suddenly after the big finality, it felt fiddly. Similar to how I felt about the comet concept and the ending for Finn. Ketchup irks me because it's such a sweet episode and it blends animation in an experimental way. I wanted to be struck with this, but I felt they continued to leave Marceline being this unresolved person with both her past and relationship with PB. I think I'm getting fed up with this pulling back and teasing. This is another plotline that, while not dead or erased, just doesn't feel like it's coming together or it's taking too much time. Fiona and Cake and Fiona plays with the Fiona and Cake formula and makes some meta commentary and is fun, but it also kind of feels like sort of a shameless promotion to make Fiona and Cake a mainstay thing. Maybe it's just because this version of me, they have season 1 already have happened in 2023, and then I think at some point in the future they're gonna have season 2 because they just announced it. So I think maybe my mind's kind of being a bit blurry and disorganized since I see that, and this episode just kind of feels like it's pandering to that. So maybe that's just a modern issue for me. I feel as if the series has gone on, The idea of Fiona and Cake has kind of become dry, and it really hasn't made me interested. A lot of the episodes just really haven't been that good or immersive. I don't really care for the characters of the world because it's like a one-off story. And I can kind of predict where things go just because Fiona and Cake is out and the cover you see things. I don't want to be too crazy into the thinking of that, but I don't know. There's just something with me that doesn't sit right with how Fiona and Cake has been the past couple seasons. Whispers is a great all-around episode, but it's the most deflating, as I feel it erases the one true thing I have always looked forward to. It anticlimactically puts an end to the Lich and Sweet Pea story. The hand that got separated into the portals of every timeline, all the evil, and everything. It just doesn't seem like they wanted to continue it or are done with the story. Again, this development may change in the next season, in Disneylands, whenever. But this version of me, after finishing season 9, this is how I feel. 3 Buckets is the pinnacle of the season, but I guess I'm surprised at how much they stuck with the Grass Blade development. It caught me by surprise, and it does seem like it will continue. So all this to explain where my head was at with the season and its progression. I felt it did some things well and still managed to have some compelling moments, but it equally had some of the most backhanded and polarizing feelings I've had with the series, which I haven't had thus far. Plot and world. The gang returns from a boat trip or possibly from their time on the islands. They come back to Ooo, where it looks very different. The world is candy mutated as familiar people are in different forms and personalities. PB says that she has fulfilled her purpose and tries to candyfy them when Ice King saves them, who is in the Cloud Kingdom. IK explains what transpired. Betty came back looking to physically jog Simon's memory. They go on a cute reuniting date. He has a new look, but to no avail. The Ice Elemental captures Betty to obtain her powers to use on the previously captured princesses to unlock the 4 elements. We now visit the Ice World portion. The Ice Elemental is at full strength. Then a shocking twist reveals that the Enchiridion is still active, which the freed Betty can learn the ways and find a cure for all of this. Finn and Jake reflect on their fears and worries about their entire situation and the future as they have been separated from IK and Betty. Upon returning, Betty says she has found a way to stop the elemental takeover, which is by acquiring the 3 remaining gems to reverse the spell. We now visit the slime part of the world. Simply just a dance skate party, and the winners assimilate into the slime princess. LSP is at this party, but no partners as she goes with Finn and Jake. She does not turn into a slime when it's timed for that. Finn and LSP manage to get inside the slime without being assimilated to steal the gem, which they acquire, but it causes Jake to be assimilated and potentially die. We enter the fire part of the world. They encounter Cinnamon Bun, who guides them and is unaffected as well. Then the fire elemental and armor starts to consume Finn and Gunter, where LSP tries to be the voice of reason and commanding everyone to stop, which twists the words of her. We also see Flame Princess, who is a dragon, but they still require her gem. The Fire Kingdom mistakes LSP's speech for words of war, which they go and fight the Candy Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom attacks the Candy Kingdom. Then, PB turns them all into candy as her calls for singing hit the entirety of Ooo, or at least this section. Finn gets cured as he remembers the moments with PB. He obtains PB's and FP's gems to complete the Enchiridion. In the meantime, LSP eats candy, but still doesn't turn into it. Then Finn gives the rest of the gems to Betty. Suddenly, Betty pushes him out the carpet and quickly leaves, with the Enchiridion and the gems and Ice King. We discover Betty's true intentions of wanting to use the Enchiridion to create a timeline or go back in time where Simon did not pick up the crown, which would disturb the balance of the world. We see the Cosmic Owl and Prismo astonished as Betty says she would have destroyed the crown in a volcano, something of the sort. She fails as Ice King knocks over one of the clips and she ends up on Mars with normal men. The other crazy revelation is LSP's identity as being the anti-elemental, which negates all the other elementals. So with the Enchiridion and gems, she's able to sing and spread her anti-abilities everywhere, which restores the world and people. The next development happens where Jake is restored, as is everyone. But when we see him, he is a blue alien of some sort. Jake's life is different after being viewed as not his usual yellow self. It soon becomes a problem of having dreams, change, and identity that involves Jermaine, his father, and the monster alien thing. He overcomes it and is back to form. Marceline is finally featured as she has a retelling of her time with PB, maybe? And BMO unlocks the flash drive, which reveals pictures of her and her mom. Fiona and Cake is real! Well, it's actually a long time old fan pretending to be Fiona as she somehow has a tape that she rewatches. And there's a laser beam that aims at Ice King while he sleeps. Sweet Pea finally gets in the fold as they feel scared due to whispers and seeing a creature in the shadows. This turns out to be the Lich's hand from the crossover episode that got decapitated and went into every timeline in the portal. It lures them both in, but Sweet Pea defeats it and is not consumed by the Lich, and potentially puts an end to this story. Fern still feels awful about letting down Finn, about not defending Ooh while he was gone, and kind of being useless with Sweet Pea. He becomes jealous and envious, so much that he traps Finn in a temple where he plans to take over, as for him it is his turn. Finn discovers new tech on his robot arm that PB made for him, which helps him escape. Things get disturbing as Finn and Fern battle. He is dedicated to be the only Finn. This leads Finn to shred Fern in an intense battle and moment. He arrives home disheveled as he feels the trauma of killing someone, and someone he thought of as a brother. Then in the final sequence, the grass curse is cut up in strands. Then a stranger whose identity is not revealed picks him up and leaves. Speculation could lead this to be a revived Martin or the King of Wu, but that's only a theory that I am making. And that was season 9 of Adventure Time. Episodes. So since there's only 13 or 14 episodes, we're just going to do 5. And I will include multiple ones from the 8-part arc. So number 5, we have episode 13, Whispers. Even though I didn't really like the pivot and the pulling back of the arm and the Lich, I still think this episode was masterful with its silence and its tension, its mystery with Sweet Pea, and even kind of going back to that continuity and that plot line. And number 4, we have episode 10, Abstract. This is an episode that I think will probably grow. I still think it kind of defeats the purpose of the finality for Elements. But in terms of the message here and the way that they approach it, I think it's very profound and it's cathartic and sweet. And it seems like they always give Jake these type of moments and episodes. So I think they are just continuing that. Number 3, we have episode 5, Cloudy. This was the one where I think usually it should be a weaker episode because there's not really much happening. But this is what I think separates itself from the other ones, where it's simply about Finn and Jake having therapy haircuts, and the activity kind of seems like, oh, it's kind of weird. But no, it's actually so wholesome, it's so beautiful, it's so vulnerable. As they just share their fears, their anxieties about the situation, it just really hit an emotional chord. So I must commend it, and it actually was the reason why I needed to have multiple episodes of the same arc. Because usually I don't do that, but since there's such little episodes and there was some really good ones here, I was like, I need to include it. Number 2, we have episode 9, Skyhooks 2. It's just the finale of everything. Like, that's where we find out the whole thing of Betty's intentions. LSP comes back, the Jake thing. So there's just so much of the resolution and everything kind of falling into place. Again, whether or not I agree or I like these developments, I still think it was a pretty amazing finale for the arcs. probably the second best one if we're including Stakes Islands in this one. And at number 1, we have episode 14, 3 Buckets. This was epic. This was horrifying to watch. This was uncomfortable. And it also pushes the series into new territories in terms of the grass is gone and someone picks him up. Where are we going? And that's kind of what it's setting up for the final season. The arm comes in clutch. Just a lot of things that it did correctly and did well for the new direction or for what's to come. Characters. This time around, with the limited season, a lot of the characters aren't really allowed to be themselves or to maybe just have one episode and that's kind of their presence. So there really wasn't much, but Marshmalline, I think that's how you say her name. Just like really quirky, cute, but playful, devilish. Just a nice form, and plus I love blue hair, so long blue hair, Marshmalline version. It sounds really cool to me. Betty, very quirky, very weird, very passionate about trying to fix this, but then we kind of get the reveal that her intention isn't to save this world, it's to revert back to that time, to get back her past. Just well done and realistic, and it's a plot, it's a motive that we don't really see too often because it's very selfish, it's very in the past, and I think the show is always about kind of moving forward or not being consumed by that or overcoming it. Fern wasn't here so much, but I liked his situation and his identity issue with he felt like a liability and he felt so bad that he wanted to overtake Finn because now he has that power to where he can be a doppelganger and no one would notice. And then this also activates more of the grass curse with maybe them kind of overtaking Fern or the true intentions of what they want. And again, they're going to be maybe built upon more later on. Maybe the grass curse isn't Fern, but I think that whole dynamic between him and Finn was also well done. At number 2, we have LSP. This is probably the only and the first time you'll ever see LSP on a top characters list, but I felt you could not really go on this part without seeing her. Just because throughout the whole thing, she's actually trying to participate in this, to help, to be a voice of reason. She has nice cool armor, so she kind of fights a little bit. And then she's the cure to all of this, as she is the anti-elemental. So it was such an interesting thing to see a character that I kind of despised, and in all my time of watching fiction, of cartoons, it's kind of one of the most unlikable characters. So again, just for them to kind of get redeemed in a way, how can't that be good writing? How can she be a top character for the season? And at number 1, we have Ice King. He kind of comes in clutch with the hooks, his hookies, and he's there with Betty. He kind of retells the whole story, and I think the big thing here too is that, he just has a new look to him. He's spiffy. He's still kind of clueless about the whole Betty thing just because, he is. But I don't know. I just felt he was the comfort character this time around. He was kind of the rock, the foundation. He was the savior. He still had some comedy in him. But I don't blame you if you want LSP as the main person for this arc. I actually think it's deserved. But yes, one of these two, top character of the season, no doubt. Overall / final impressions. Season 9 was not the package I expected. It becomes one of the most irreconcilable, is that how you say the word? Experiences I've had on my journey thus far. I feel their heart and storytelling was in the right place with elements and the aftermath. It still delivered quality, expanded on the world in a historical aspect, had great continuity, and continued the developments to push the series. The part that makes me feel deflated is the amount of plots and built-up stories they either refused to go into or suddenly parted ways with. It's tough for me to want to feel excited and happy when they potentially took away the parts that I tuned in every day for these past 6 months for. Obviously, they can still come back, and with my lack of knowledge with what's to come, but this is just how I feel at the moment. I think I would rate this a lot lower if I was taking a more personal approach to this, But I honestly do think they did manage to do some great and even unexpected things that is perhaps the story they want to tell and not what I expected and wanted. I have to remind myself of that. There's a story that they are trying to make, and it's not what I am envisioning or what I think is, if they don't do this, it won't be successful. That is not the case. I am giving season 9 a 7.5 to a 7. I guess it kind of does depend where season 10 goes and the territories that they venture off to. That being said, that is all I got. So, the next time I see you will be when we start season 10. I will see you there.